Today we are learning basketball with Jordan at the Big Wave from Swish Theory and Gmanalytics. Here to talk a little draft model, a little analytics and scouting, little Sixers, maybe a little NBA to round out the pod. But I'm excited to hear your process and scouting and dive into a draft model. I think the draft is unconquered land for basketball stats in a lot of ways. So there's always fun to dive into new theories. But before we do, how you doing today, Jordan?
I'm doing well. Glad to be here. Honored, and yeah. Let's get into it.
Absolutely. So I thought we could start a little bit with just your background in basketball and analytics, just your process of, what do you think the role analytics plays in scouting in general, and how can it be useful to maybe target some unheralded prospects that might not be seen, normally and just by the eye test, or maybe you miss them on film. Maybe they're at a smaller school that they're not seen as much, but then they pop in a stat or something like that. So, could you dive into that process a little bit?
Yeah. So I've always been a big basketball fan. I've always been into the draft, and I think that was one of those things that always kind of eluded me. I think everyone has those players who oh, I was sure this guy was going to be amazing in the NBA and he was a total bust, or the opposite way where I can't believe how good this guy ended up being. So I've always been interested in that and getting to the root of why that is, and trying to make better predictions in that way. And I was introduced to that sort of statistical approach, the analytical approach, and I saw that using that approach could lead to better results, more streamlined process, as opposed to just watching the games or looking at rankings or following the hype and stuff like that. So I was always I got interested in that, focusing on that aspect of it, and that's how I got into playing around with draft models. And I'm now actually working on my master's degree in data science. So now, I'm learning how to actually build predictive models, and using all that knowledge and that background to make the drip best draft model that I can come up with, and hopefully, like you said, something that uh, can unearth underrated guys or expose overrated guys, or whatever.
Yeah, and when it comes to building that draft model, it's cool to build it from the ground up because I don't know if outside the on the outside people that use stats don't necessarily realize that the creator really controls a lot of the factors in that stat, and that a stat can heavily favor one thing, and you might not really realize it. Just the way that they contextualize it, like maybe a PER like really heavily is impacted by big men or rebounds or block stats that are normally from big men. So maybe there, is a little bit of a bias towards big men. So I think that, coming up, it's a cool process to try to weigh the factors of how much percentage should you weigh deflections versus steals and blocks versus the rebounding. Like what do you weigh? So without revealing all your secrets of the model itself, is there anything that you kind of noticed when you were trying to prioritize, what to weigh the most in your formula?
Yeah. So the model, it's sort of like it's called like a lasso model. So basically, what it does is it looks at all the variables and then just focuses in on the ones that are statistically significant. So a lot of those, like you said, I don't want to give away all the trade secrets, but it's a lot about the stats that sort of, like you said, don't focus too much on big guys or guards or whatever. It's kind of the ones that bind players together the most. So it's a lot of compounded variables, like you said, if you look at just blocks, you're going to get big guys. If you look at steals, you're going to get point guards mostly and what have you. But if you bring them together and look at stocks, you're going to get a pretty good mix and a pretty good, better overall, reflection of how good they are as defensive players. So it's a lot of those sort of metrics that sort of bring together the different prototypes.
Makes sense. And I'm pulling up your intro to the model here. Thought we could walk through a little bit of what you were talking about with kind of what goes into the formula, just a little brief for people of what is kind of the goal of this model and what goes into the model, what's the logic behind it, and why it really can be helpful for that scouting process where I bring it back to that, the eyes can only watch so many games. You can only watch so much tape on so many prospects, but, the numbers can help kind of point you in the direction of maybe which prospects to watch more of. And like you said, maybe they're not seen enough, but because they're really high in this impact metric, I'm going to go watch three of their games, try to catch some good and bad and see, okay, maybe he does impact the game in this way or that way and needs to be more on my radar. And, it's with all the access to tape now, it's almost too much information. So I think something like a model can help kind of really, coordinate and, put a little bit of perspective into where you should be paying the most attention.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, also like there are guys that my model likes that sometimes I think like, no, that's not an NBA player. And then, it turns out that I'm actually wrong, so definitely I think, it can streamline that process as far as like who to focus on, who matters, and who maybe you should just sort of, throw in the garbage.
Yeah, and that's an interesting point that there's no human bias in the perspective of like the model where it's like maybe I look at a prospect differently than you, so I'm valuing certain skills here and there, but the model's not necessarily doesn't have that. It's just gonna spit out the results of the stats and the formula you put in. But the bias comes into back kind of what I was saying before to the formula of the model itself. Like if it favors a certain stat, then that ends up being a little bit of a bias. So you just want to be aware that every impact metric is not meant to just be a bit like a Bleacher Report top 10 ranking of the best players out there right now. Like it's supposed to reveal something about the way that player is impacting the game in their role. I normally interpret it to like a higher like DPM on dunks and or EPM on dunks and threes. To me, normally will imply like higher impact within their role. So you might see teammates higher up on these impact metrics on teammates of good teams higher up on this metrics because they bring more two-way balance to the game where they're kind of adding to a sum of its parts, where you'll see like a lot of the Thunder and a lot of the Celtics players all really highly last year in these metrics. And obviously they are great two-way impactful players, but when you start adding them up together, you get the sum of the parts and everything becomes a little bit easier. And it just kind of, I think, naturally raises all of these metrics together and makes everything a little bit more efficient and a little bit maybe easier and less of a load provide, so they get a little more use or a little more impact with less usage that way. So it's interesting to to use it. So do you want to run through some of the historical data you got here?
Yeah, sure. Um, so you can see there, Anthony Davis, the king of the draft model. Um, but yeah, I mean, I don't know if you wanted to focus on a certain year or certain players, right or wrong, or the hits or misses.
Yeah, maybe start with what in general is anyone looking at here? The first thing they should think when they see this chart.
Yeah, so the X4 metric is basically it's the projected VORP per year, which is not a real thing, but it's sort of like an ad hoc metric target variable for the model, um, because obviously just using total VORP would skew towards guys who've played more seasons and whatever. So this is all just sorted by the expected VORP per year, and then also sorted by position and the NCAA and international prospects and G League prospects, and then you can go to the different years as well to see who the model projected number one each year, or how it compares to maybe like a redraft scenario in hindsight.
Yeah, and one thing I notice is that stands out is playmaking for kind of the offensive side of a lot of these players, and defensive versatility on the defensive side for a lot of these players. I mean, Anthony Davis, Cooper Flagg, Victor Wembanyama, Evan Mobley, Ben Simmons, Chet Holmgren, Jaren Jackson Jr., even Wendell Carter back at Duke. Like these are all very versatile defenders from their time in college, and that's one thing that stands out. Just looking through some of the names, and obviously it's full of stars, offensive stars. Shout out Michael Beasley, walking bucket, one of the all time favorites there.
He wasn't trying. Michael Beasley he wasn't trying in the NBA. It's my theory.
Man, I mean, it was just unfair in college. That's one of those examples where it's like, I think the talent is absurd, and I'm all in on Beasley in that draft.
I couldn't believe Derrick Rose is going number one over Michael Beasley. I forgot what a mistake.
Man, back then the battles with KD too around that time, I believe they were kind of coming up together. Yeah. Man, good times there, but a lot of stars here, and clearly, stars impact the game most, and this would match the eye test, I think, off the first glance with, the most impactful, especially college players, but it's also international. So how are you able to scale the international data with the NCAA data? And I imagine there's quite a process just finding that data and putting it all in one even database and making it all look nice and clean.
Yeah. Well, thankfully, Real GM, give them a plug. They have a great database of all the international leagues and everything. But yeah, that really was quite a process, and honestly, like an ongoing process. I did some stuff with that this summer, actually, and it's going to be actually a really good test now that you're seeing so many international players going to NCAA. So we'll get a lot of samples for that translation. But yeah, basically, what I did was looked at guys who played both college basketball and international basketball, or college basketball and G League, and sort of basically I set like strength of schedule variables for each of the different leagues, so that ideally it's reflective of like what their projection would have looked like had they played college basketball. So basically, like Wembanyama or Luka Doncic, like these guys would have been Kevin Durant-esque, college basketball studs, and the rest. And, that's the goal, at least, to put them sort of on par with the NCAA players.
Now I'm trying to think what school I'm picturing Luka and Wemby at, and if they were in NCAA, just trying to match up the vibes. Like they I don't know. I guess Wemby would probably end up at Duke, but I don't think Luka would. I feel like he'd be doing something at a random, like a random school, and just like leading one of those, I don't know, Cinderella stories. But he's Lucas, so he's not really any Cinderella. But it'd be funny to picture the international guys, kind of match them up with some teams. But in terms of impact, I pulled up the rookies this year. So last year's draft class, or this past draft class. So I thought we could highlight some of the rookies in the model, and some of the reasons. I liked a lot of these rookies. Like, for instance, Asa Newell is really high in impact ratings. I can see him 10th here. He's really high in BPM. And part of that we know is he's like superb at offensive rebounding and has a quick second jump and is racking up blocks and rebounds. So, those are stats that tend to really weigh heavily in impact stats the more that I look into it. But it just depends on the metric, of course. Was there any prospects in this class that jumped out to you, good or bad, that maybe are a little higher or lower than they might be by consensus?
Well, I mean, I guess you could look at like a Kalkbrenner. I thought should have been a first round pick. He's finding success early on, especially a guy like that who's. I mean, he was 23 and a half years old almost at draft time, and age is a major variable in the model. So when you see an older guy who projects, well above replacement player, I guess we'll see what happens with Janai Broom as well, but that's a pretty good sign. Like those guys have a pretty good success rate because it's, it factors in the age, and they still come out well.
Yeah,
Um,
those are two great shouts. I like that.
yeah, and I mean Thomas Sorber,
Oh,
really unfortunate with him getting hurt again. I'm
yeah,
worried about that, but I do think that might be a steal there for the Thunder in time.
absolutely. No, great shout for all those guys. I mean, I ended up moving Sorber kind of much higher than I had him. Maybe not much, but a couple spots higher than I had him pre-draft because of where he landed. Like I think of all the big men, he just landed in the perfect situation where he gets to be the heir apparent to a defensive anchor to a team that already has two defensive anchors, but like he gets to like learn from them, maybe replace them down the line,
Right.
fill that system, and like become another defensive handoff guy. Like he incredible playmaker as well, and in theory pairs well with Chet. They're unicorn big man. That's more of a stretch for lengthy type of guy. While Sorber's just he was I think was the tallest and strongest and biggest prospect last year. Sorber he had some crazy measurements coming out of the draft, and also some really smart defender in terms of the fouls by steals and blocks per foul rate. So I'm sure that's another reason he's pretty high on these drafts. And again, I mean, defense is popping out on this chart. Like it's almost ranking the best defenders in the draft. And I think that's really harder to nail down when you're evaluating, and it's harder, and there's less. Like we know what offensive efficiency, points per possession, true shooting, like that we kind of know when it comes to scoring efficiency, 3-point efficiency, play type efficiency, kind of who's good at offense and who's creating different things. But like defense isn't as clear cut. So if you can kind of find, build that model that matches the eye test, I think pretty well, then, you're onto something here. Like literally Cooper Flag, VJ Edgecombe, Dylan Harper, CMB, come on, Sorber, top 7 might be the best 7 defenders in this class. Asa Newell's right there. Ace Bailey's right there. And, Noah Sengu has some potential there. But, maybe Ben Seraph overseas also has some of that. And, there's more. But, like, Cedric Howard is another guy, top 30. Noah Penda, top 30, another guy. So, anyway, just clear to me that, this really values defense. And it's not over prioritizing maybe points per game or some more box score metrics like that. And I agree with what you said about, Kalkbrenner and Broom. Like, you've got 2 win now players. I'm interested about how it accounts for age, as you said, because it can be a problem in the eyes of the NBA teams and evaluators when you have an older prospect. But it's kind of going away a little bit. Like it's still, I think, affecting the outcome a little bit. Like as you said, Kalkbrenner fell to the second round when a lot of models and evaluators definitely thought he was more like around where this has him, like around the 20th level of a pick. And now he's a starting center in the NBA, playing really well for Charlotte. Defensive anchor, traditional guy with potential to be a pick and pop stretch guy. He's a guy that had really developed into just a great college basketball player, and clearly had a high floor as an NBA rotation center. If you just watched him play, it's clearly like a traditional skill set in there somewhere, I think. So that's one of those things where, yeah, he's a little bit older, but you kind of know what you're getting. You're not betting on potential at the 20th, at the 30th pick really as much anymore. Like maybe you are a little if someone falls there. But like you're trying to find an NBA rotation player who's going to stick, especially when you look at the odds of like all-stars per draft slot or NBA rotation players per draft slot. Like those odds fall really quickly in the draft.
Yeah. Just take someone who can play at that point. Like obviously, Kalkbrenner or Jedi Broom, like these were elite players in college basketball. Like that's probably who you should be focusing on at that point.
Yeah, and they're both two-way guys that play defense and can hit the three. And they're both a little old school. They bring a little post up defense as well. And Broom is super old school in his skill set. So I'm interested to see him in Philly. But shout out Jace Richardson, Magic pick 14, pretty high on him here as well. That's
Look, I love that. I love that landing spot for him too, going to the Magic.
Yeah. I mean, it's a great match of his skill set is exactly what Orlando needs, and he's been like feathery shooting touch ever since he landed in Orlando. Hopefully, he gets some more playing time to show that off a little bit. But it's a busy rotation down there. But something else I also find interesting is some of the playmaking centers and kind of the connectors and potential guys like Hansen Yang, Danny Wolf, Maxime Reynaud, Hugo Gonzalez, Will Riley, even Traore, McNeely, more connector types. But I think that it's also showing to value playmaking. So is playmaking and defense something that you prioritized?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I did mention this in the explainer article, but one of the variables that's I think one of the main like statistical variables is like rebounds per 40 minutes times assist to turnover ratio.
Mm.
So like that's one of those that, like you said, the playmaking big man or the point forward, even like the tall point guard, Lonzo, LaMelo Ball, Josh Giddey, Halliburton, like these guys destroy my model because that's a big part of it, and that that's a really important, I think, skill combination because it shows the athleticism and or size and also the playmaking ability and basketball IQ on the offensive end. So I think that's a big part of why definitely that sort of point forward, point center mold does really well in the model and in real life.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the as you said, the rebounding can kind of just be a good example of instincts and timing that is exemplified by that stat. And then assisted turnover shows the good decision making, the 3 point shooting. You've got Trey Johnson, Con Knipple, Ace Bailey down here. So, VJ Edgecombe and Dylan Harper tied for number two. I mean, I think that's a good shout at the moment. Edgecombe has been otherworldly. I'm sure we'll hit on the Sixers in a little, but he's been killing it, and Harper looked great too. He just got hurt. I think Harper can be a legit
Harper's,
like
I think.
two-way scoring creator, defense plus defender. He can run your offense. Like he does it all. So Spurs got another one, man. But this is super interesting here. You want to? Did you have any more thoughts before we shift to the model for this upcoming season?
No, I think cover a lot of ground there. So
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of good names here. Even into the second round, you're still getting NBA prospects like this. This felt like a deep class with a lot of, potential defenders, like most class, but it just felt deep with like potential role players this year. But so here is next year's draft model, 2026 draft model, All Americans on the Swish Theory website. And I'll pull it up here. So you got 5 players here that maybe you want to highlight a little bit that your model really likes that to put on the map a little bit for everybody.
yeah, so this is a article I like to do every year. It's just like it's my draft model's favorite players who are not like ranked or on mock drafts or in the big boards or whatever. And so since the model is geared toward NBA success, I always think that's sort of an interesting aspect of why aren't these guys ranked or maybe they should be kind of thing. And this is with no uh, insight from me. It's just the model's picks, so to speak. Um,
Yeah.
so
What's your first reaction when the model likes somebody that you don't like? Like, is it trying to fix the model or is it trying to trust the model?
yeah, I try to just sort of open my mind to the possibilities. I mean, and then there's so many examples over the years of guys who I probably should have been even more bullish on, but I just like I was like like Franz Wagner really like that guy, like I don't know, like but I've learned to trust the model and to keep an open mind those those scenarios. So that's why like with these guys, some of them I can see why they're not ranked or whatever, but still in the end I kind of give my model some benefit of the doubt that maybe they're right.
There it is. So you want to run through some of the guys here? We got Tyler Tanner, it looks like, point guard Vanderbilt to start off.
Right. Yeah. Tyler Tanner. So he's the assist to turnover king.
Mm.
Um, so like I said, he had 31 assists to zero turnovers at one point or something like that, which totally broke the model. But and it did come back to earth. But he also is an outlier steals rate, which as you identified, is an important part of the model, and just a good indicator for NBA prospects. Um, and I think he's off to a pretty good start this year. I was looking for more offensive production for him. It seems like his scoring is going up, his role is expanding, and so he's only 6 foot, but there are success stories of little guards in the NBA, and that applies to Marcus Burton as well. So I think there's a shot. The sort of a Trey Jones backup point guard distributor role, passed on defense. I think those you see enough of those guys floating around NBA rosters. Um,
Yeah, he especially that assist to turnover ratio. I mean, that's the Tyus has been leading the league for 7 years, and obviously had a ton of success at Duke with it. He has a little bit of a 3 point shot, so it seems like Tanner needs to fine tune that one maybe a
yeah,
little bit to round out the game. But like you said, jumps out with the steals and the passing. I can just kind of scroll through as you're talking with each guy if you'd like.
yeah, sure. We got Marcus Burton, big scorer at Notre Dame, obviously undersized, maybe more of a college basketball prototype, but the production is there, and my model does value usage, and efficiency, and he did have the highest usage rate in the high majors, I think, last year. Um, but like I said, his efficiency is a little leaves some to be desired. So I can see why he's not. The NBA isn't going crazy over him, but I do think maybe he's got a chance as a sort of a spark plug scorer off the bench. Then you got Alvaro Folgueiras. He was kind of the standout of this list to me. Um, Pretty strong projection, and like as I point out here, he's just draft model bait. I mean, like we talked about the rebounding and passing interaction, steals and blocks. He's efficient. He shoots threes. He makes free throws. He's young. He's big. I mean, it's all there. I can't imagine any draft model that wouldn't like him. And it seems like a lot of people are now warming to the idea of him as a first rounder, or even top 20. Or I've seen a lot of rankings more recently where he's very high. Uh,
I was going to say, what's the drawback? Because you got quite a complete prospect here. There's maybe one drawback you saw.
right, right. Well, he was playing at Robert Morris last year and his first 2 years, so it's a weak strength of schedule, and that definitely matters in the model a lot. I mean, all else being equal, playing at Robert Morris versus playing at Duke or Kentucky is obviously not the same thing. But
Yeah,
he is at Iowa now, so I guess not that Iowa has sent so many guys to the NBA, but we'll at least get a better idea of if his production is real or if he was just beating up on weak competition, sort of.
yeah. Maybe we got a little basketball journey like Cedric Coward on our hands. He's got some high where he jumps up to a better, tougher competition, and we didn't see a ton of games at Washington State, but he showed enough at the sample before where teams like the skill set, like the sample at the smaller school, and they took a chance in Memphis, and has been a runaway home run so far. So, I mean, when you're ranking this high in box plus minus and combining rebounding, passing, shooting, steals, blocks, like you're and shooting efficiency and 6'9", like you're gonna get a look from the NBA. Like if you can shoot, pass, dribble, and defend, like welcome to the league at six
Yeah,
nine.
he just
Like,
checks a ton of boxes, and maybe coincidental, but also very Santi Aldama,
mm,
coming from Spain and played in the Patriot League or whatever, and crushed it. And it turned out that it was for real. Another Grizzly.
there you go. Gotta watch out for that Grizzlies draft room.
Yeah,
Targeting these versatile,
they
do
have a
it all
draft of
prospects.
their own of some sort. They're doing pretty well.
There we go. So we got Robert Miller here from LSU.
Yeah, Robert Miller, admittedly a guy I don't know a real lot about, and he played about 500 minutes last year, so kind of a lightly used role player at LSU. But he's super young, and he's 6'10" and bouncy, and like I pointed out here, he has some important data points. 1.2 assists to turnover, not typical of 18-year-old big man. Super efficient around the rim. So, he's another guy I'd like to see in more of an expanded role this year. But, the per minute numbers are there, and like I said, the youth, the size, and doing it in the SEC, taking all in combination. He's a pretty interesting guy in my opinion.
Yeah, and did you say how long he's been at LSU? I might have missed that.
Oh yeah, so he's just a sophomore this year, but I
Okay.
think
I was just thinking he probably played with Curtis Givens if he was there last year. I caught a little bit, like a couple games of Curtis running some point guard. He played at Mount Verde, so I caught him at Mount Verde a little bit more back in Orlando during high school. But I was, I caught a few early games, but I know LSU like changed the rotation a lot. They didn't
yeah,
have
I
the
don't
best
think he was playing
season.
much early in the season because he was kind of a guy that I feel like
Yeah.
I added him sort of later on. Uh, he was
Ooh.
sort of slow drip, but so pretty promising numbers in limited minutes.
And something just clicked too for Alvaro. He's teamed up with Bennett Sturts now, and
Yes.
Ben McCollum as his coach. I mean, he's gonna get a little bit of a spotlight this season, where that's like they're almost past Cinderella story too. Like this is Big Ten basketball. Sturts is one of the best returning players in the whole league at this level. He's skyrocketing up draft boards, so you get like a versatile play finisher, do it all wing next to Sturts, kind of a creator guard. Like you probably get to see Alvaro in a pretty good role for his skill set. Kind of play off Sturts and play some defense, do all the helper, play finisher, role player type of Sean Marion-esque type of stuff that you want as next to him. So, I'm not overly familiar with his game, but I imagine like his ability to do all these things next to certs will be unlocked and on display. Like you could easily he could easily get some a deep March Madness run this year and get seen much with a big game and obviously Big Ten. You're going up against big time competition all season long. So we'll get to see if the numbers and the efficiency kind of holds up against stronger schedule.
Yeah, and Bennett Sturt's another draft model favorite. So I was really excited to see those two guys going to the same school. That's like if I was an AD, if I was a college coach, those are literally like have been the two guys like I would want in the transfer portal. Like get me Sturts and Folgueiras. So that's pretty sick that they're now teammates.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't know if there's players as impactful as those two that would be available in the transfer portal, and with something to prove. Like they're both trying to improve their draft stock at this point, and Sturts I think is going lottery, maybe even higher projected by the time the draft rolls around. Like he could be in top 10 talks. Like he's just a super complete guard, doing it all out there. But it's a really loaded draft as well, so it'll be tough to kind of move up too high. But we'll see how it shakes out. I definitely could see, could definitely see Certs in the lottery, and then could see Alvaro based on this stat profile getting a look and moving up very quickly. Like if you have the height and the length and the ball skills and the instincts to kind of guard your man and play team first basketball, like you you're gonna get a look at the NBA. So good luck to him. And you got one last player for us from Dayton.
Yes, Emile Letang. I'm not sure if I'm butchering that name, but 7'1" center from France. He's another sophomore this year. Um, I thought he had a solid profile in his freshman year. Um, in particular, I pointed out his passing ability at 7'1", which is pretty unique, and also show some stretch five potential. He can make threes, and yeah, basically, like he just broadly has the type of profile. Like if you're 7'1" and you can play, like you're you're very likely to play in the NBA, and you can't be good in the NBA unless you play in the NBA. So I think guys like that generally are going to do pretty well in the model, and I mean most of them are already ranked on draft boards, I guess. But yeah, I mean that's one I think. I think that's another one you're starting to hear about him more and more, and I think the hype will keep picking up there.
Yeah, definitely impressive when you see a center or a player over 7 foot have ball skills at all, let alone like positive connector, positive 3-point shooter. Um, you mentioned he's slight in frame, so maybe not sure. Uh, I guess we'll see how the defense and the rebounding kind of shakes out because of that sort of thing. But to round out, his game and two-way impact there. But a skilled offensive big is going to get a look in the draft, whether he defends or not. But normally, you just kind of want every prospect that you're looking at to have as few holes as possible, or ideally zero holes. Like maybe like it might not be his strength, but it also just can't be. You don't want to lose games or lose possessions because a guy can't defend or he can't shoot and he doesn't stretch the floor or he hurts you on that end. So just it's a factor in the team building here, but super interesting, man. I mean, I'm excited to see how these guys shake out, especially Alvaro at Iowa. I'm gonna be keeping an eye on him, and I will learn how to pronounce his name by the end of the season. I'm gonna go with
Yeah,
Folgueiras. It looks like
I don't know.
Folgueiras, but
I pretty much learn these guys' names, the proper pronunciation, like when they get drafted. When
yeah,
the
it's
commissioners,
safer that way.
I'm like, oh, it's Nilakina. I've been saying Tilakina the whole time.
Oh yeah,
So many such.
Frankie Frankie Smokes is a great shout for that. I also was throwing the T in there and messing it up, but pronunciations are not the strong suit. But here on Learning Basketball, but that's why we're here to learn and learn something new. So super cool. Was there any lasting thoughts on the model that you're kind of interested to kind of see play out this season? From the college or international perspective, maybe player you want to see if they get higher or lower, or just anything at all with the model.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, this year, I think I'll put up like the first update for this year's projections, probably like February sometime, like around the point where the guys have maybe, 12, 15 games under their belt, because in small samples, you can get some really, goofy results, and there's just a ton of variance still. One really good game could totally sway their projection. So, but I mean, as far as some like early returns, I mean, definitely this freshman class. I mean, already the cream of the crop to Boozer, Peterson, Caleb Wilson. These guys look like total studs. Um, Another guy that I'm pretty interested in. I haven't seen a lot of people talking about him, though I think he's supposed to be an early pick, and he's doing real well with a slightly larger sample. Is Kareem Lopez in the Australian League? 18 years old, and he's got a pretty nice production profile. I'm not super familiar with his game, but he's 6'8". It seems like he can shoot a little bit and rebounds and pretty versatile. So that's a guy I'm going to be keeping my eye on for sure from the international ranks.
Yeah, that's definitely definitely a name to keep an eye on for the draft. Very very cool, man. This is a lot of fun diving into the model here. So I thought we could segue to the NBA for a quick little maybe exercise to end the pod of, are they for real? Are they not for real? And maybe pick your brain on the Sixers a little bit. So I thought we could play a little. Is this team for real? Is this team not for real? Like whether it's good or bad. Go through a couple of surprise stories in the league, and just any thoughts on how, if you think they are going to sustain the success, or if the bad team's going to stay bad. Let's see here. Who's is there any team that jumps off the page for you off the top? I was look around the East. I mean, I think the Miami Heat is the one for me where they're kind of outdoing expectations, and in a different style of play. Do you think the Heat success they're going to be able to keep this up with this different play style the rest of the way?
I can't say I've seen much of the Heat this year, but I mean, I feel like just looking at the roster, I just don't think there's enough there. I mean, I know Spoelstra's a great coach, and he can do a lot with a little, but I don't know, man. Bam Adebayo he's a very good player, and seems like Wiggins is doing well. I've never been a big fan of his, but maybe in that system they can get the most out of him. Um, and I mean, Hero was out for a while, right? I mean, that's
Yeah, they've been doing it without Hero.
so,
They've been doing the this kind of like no screens offense a lot. They're scoring a lot without screens. It's pretty interesting. They're running 30 or 40 fewer pick and rolls per game than they were last year. Contrary to the Grizzlies running 30 or 40 more pick and rolls per game this year, with the common denominator being an assistant coach, Noah LaRoche, who was credited with some of these driving kick relocation concepts, that is now a consultant with Miami. So they're running out of the gates, scoring all these points without running pick and roll. So it's kind of an interesting trend. But it's early season basketball. Teams are still getting their defenses together, their schemes, their routines. So that's what makes it interesting. It's small sample. Like, is it for real? Can they keep this up? Because, like you're saying, like they don't have a clear star anymore. Jimmy's not there. Norman Powell also has been shooting lights out. He's been lighting it up for them. He's been a success for them. But they still got the fifth best defense and 11th in offense. So promising two-way factors there. But I'm interested to see if the picks kind of or how the pick and roll process for them kind of plays out. Like if they return to more handoffs like we're used to seeing without a bio, or if it's just kind of ISO drive and kick, and what happens there. The Sixers are another 7-4 team. I know you're watching the Sixers close. Maxey, otherworldly, lighting it up like 33 points a game on
yeah.
9 threes a game or something. And Edgecombe, man, he's super impressive. Just everything. What have you seen from those two so far that gets you excited the rest of the way this season? Whether the other stars come back or not.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll touch on Edgecombe first. I mean, he's kind of hit a wall a little bit the last couple games, but he's sort of, I mean, I feel like this is more what I would have envisioned for him coming into the season. Like those first couple games, I mean, he was just like, that was so much. I mean, I personally wouldn't have thought he would like score 30 points once all year, and he did it in the very first game. So I feel like, you know, in addition to his obvious talents, his athleticism and his defense, and seems like a smart decision maker, and things like that. I mean, I think it's a really good foundation, and I think the scoring and the shooting will come along. It's a little inconsistent right now, but so I mean, I think he's going to be a really really good player. Um, and with Maxi, yeah, I mean, he just keeps getting better and better, and I mean, his ability to shoot and score is obviously elite. But as far as the team outlook, I mean, Embiid already having a setback with his knees is kind of a disaster. I don't know what's going on with Paul George. I'm not even totally sure that Paul George exists. Um, but
He's just an idea, an
yeah,
anomaly.
it's like a
Fugazi.
Mandela effect thing or something. I don't know. I've seen no evidence of Paul George. But I'm just not sure. Like last year, Embiid got hurt, and the Sixers basically like lost every game. Like Maxi's a really good player, but I just don't think he's like the kind of guy that's gonna carry them by himself.
Yeah, it's tough when you're asking him to do everything for the offense, literally put the team on his back like that, and like he's obviously an electric scorer. Like he's in MVP talks. If he kept his rate up, he's probably the honorary fifth place MVP small guard winner that tends to always get fifth place. Yeah, like he
School award.
yeah, the like he's in the MVP conversation, which means he got fifth. But it always tends to go to, not always, but it's funny. It tends to go to a small guard. I feel like any that has like the hot storyline of the season, even though it's normally between three like actual candidates
Giannis.
that are doing a little, Giannis, Jokic, Embiid, or
Like actually, like Maxi's not in the conversation with Giannis and Jokic. You don't have to say that.
right.
It's too obvious that those guys are.
It's there's different tiers to it, but like he's a special scorer, electric, like that burst of speed combined with the stop and start 3-point shooting with the left hand, just so hard to guard. So understandable, and you want to see him be healthy so they can kind of see the dynamic of how it actually looks together with McCain and VJ, and yeah, Edgecombe like absolutely incredible. I'm with you. I thought it was more of like, yeah, he might develop the 3-point shot down the line, not coming out of the gates, splashing threes for 30 points.
Right.
And like he had that highlight. He's had multiple highlights where he's trying to throw down like postered slam dunks and just annihilate people with no respect. And he had a really nice move, like a crossover D Wade type of looking Hezzy's left to right slashing type of drive that was really really cool, reminiscent of Wade. So I mean, definitely just exciting potential for VJ of what he can become, because he could be this like defensive playmaker, connector, 3-point shooter, off ball ancillary guy. But if some of the on ball stuff continues to develop, like he's an insane athlete. So like you could really, sky's the limit for where that could go, and definitely like just a perfect pairing next to a guy like Maxi and in theory McCain, like having a 3-guard rotation like that. Like VJ can play some 3 too, but like that's 3 guards you can build around for a long time. So like the iteration of the Sixers might be a few years down the road with those 3. But until then, like you're just hoping to, like I still think on paper they could contend if they could get Embiid healthy, but like that if is just a big one.
Yeah, like I mean, in all seriousness, I don't think Embiid or Paul George are washed. I think they could still play at a high level. They just haven't been healthy. So that's where my skepticism comes in.
Exactly. It's tough. Let's see here. How about a team that's not doing so well in the league? And if there's any teams that jump out to you for this exercise, feel free to give them a shout. But I'm just looking at some of the standings. Like the Pacers are down to 1-10. Kind of thought they'd be a little more competitive. The Clippers are 3-7. They're dealing with a lot of drama off the court, but they have a ton of personnel. Kind of thought they'd be loaded up. Dallas obviously is. We didn't even mention Nico Harrison, and I don't know if we have to, but it was a man. I mean, about time for that to happen. Like, I don't know how you could do that to the city of Dallas and rip their franchise cornerstone away and trade him, not for nothing, but like just trade him. Period is blasphemy. It should have been over the day it happened and never allowed. But that's the NBA. So I actually like, if you remove all the Luka stuff, I didn't hate their roster. They do have defensive personnel. Like there was a reason. There was some reason he did the trade, which was defensive identity and all that. But they just haven't been able to stay healthy either. So just Memphis kind of, up and down dealing with Josh stuff. Will any of those teams jump out to you that you think maybe could turn things around? New Orleans 2-8. They kind of have a roster that, could be more competitive, and they don't have a first rounder. So, they're incentivized to win a little more, but the rest of the teams are probably, not much hope to improve down here in the win column that I'm looking at. But any of those teams jump out to you?
Yeah, I mean the Mavs. I think it's almost a little bit like the Sixers, where I feel like
Yeah.
if they had AD and Kyrie and Cooper Flag, I mean, like that on paper, like that's
Pretty good.
you can't tell me that's a bad team, And another, I feel like a Sixers angle to the Nico Harrison situation. I feel like people forget this because it was lost in the shuffle with the Luka trade, but they also traded Quentin Grimes and a
Right.
draft pick for Cody Martin. That was a real thing that happened. I mean, then it got draft pick what was rescinded, I think, because Cody Martin like failed his physical. But I thought that was like one of the most insane trades I've ever heard of. Like, why would they do that? Why Cody Martin? It was just so bizarre, and I
So
feel like no one knows about that because totally overshadowed by the Luka trade. But I thought almost like an equally bizarre, like lopsided trade. Like, what were they thinking?
yeah, and we didn't even mention it, but like Grimes is balling for you guys
Grimes really
this year.
good. Yeah, yeah. He
Six
plays,
threes a game at 40% shooting for
yeah,
17
like, he can
points a
really
game.
shoot, and he plays tough defense. Like I feel like when he's in his prime, he's like a prototypical shooting guard. Like I thought that was a wild decision there. But yeah, and I mean, I don't know what's going on with like the Clippers. That just seems like a really sad team. Um, I mean, yeah, the
That's a good way to
Pacers.
put it. It is
I'm
sad out
surprised
there.
it bottomed out like that, but obviously they're dealing with a ton of injuries. Uh,
Yeah. And let's see, we got a couple teams that I mean, every team I guess is hovering around 500, but you know the Bulls, the Suns, the and who was the other team I just saw? The Blazers, Bulls, and Suns. I think are interesting. Of like they have been competitive this year. Will they kind of keep that competitiveness up and actually challenge for a play-in or better? I think Portland definitely could. Their defense has been insane. So that's one to watch. But any of those three jump out of, uh, maybe the most legit team out of those three that could really have a chance to make the playoffs. Obviously, the Bulls are in the East, so a little bit easier chance to at least be in that play-in range.
yeah, I don't know if they're the most legit, but I agree with you on Portland. I think they're an interesting young team. I'm a big Donovan Clingan guy. He was a really strong draft model guy always, and another one that was kind of like I wasn't so sure at first, and then was through his sophomore year, and UConn is dominating, and he's at the center of all that. It was sort of like, yeah, like this guy's a real game changer center. But yeah, I think that's an interesting young group. Uh, I think maybe Chauncey Billups getting fired may have been for the best. I'm not sure, but that'll be an interesting team to watch. I think.
Yeah, well, we'll see how that situation shakes out. There's been some wild stories in the NBA this year to start things off that don't have too much to do with basketball, but the basketball still has been great. And Portland's defense is legit. Number one team at forcing turnovers. They were legit elite defense last year for the last few months. In my opinion, they kind of turned over all the roster personnel of guys that weren't really defensive guys that matched up with this culture. Like DeAndre Ayton is no longer starting center for this team. Like you said, Klingon is holding it down. They took a chance on Yang as well. But yeah, I mean, and I totally agree on Klingon there. Like defensive anchor does what you need as a play finisher around the rim. Might not be the most versatile offensive guy, but like is in terms of like defensive center, big man, dirty work. Like he's the guy. He's a guy you want down low, and most teams would be happy to have. One last team, actually, we'll go two last teams: the Lakers and the Spurs. And the Pistons are 9-2, so I'm just gonna change it to three last teams. Any of these teams jump out to you? We got 9-2 Detroit, 8-2 Spurs, 8-3 Lakers. They are all exceeding expectations a decent amount, I would say. And Lakers doing it without LeBron. Spurs did it without Fox for the most part. I think he's just getting back. And Detroit, dealing with some injuries to like Ivy as well. So each team missing like something of a key player while over exceeding expectations a little bit. I have in my mind the most legit of these three, but I'll wait to hear yours first. Anyone jump out to you as kind of either the most legit like contender or like you think they're going to keep up the success the rest of the way?
It was Lakers, Detroit, and who?
I threw the Spurs in there too. So we got
Oh,
Wemby Spurs, Cade Pistons, and Luca Lakers.
right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think the Spurs are ready. They get Fox back. I mean, Luca. I mean, sorry, Wemby. I think he's sort of on that trajectory. Honestly, it reminds me of Embiid when he entered the NBA. It was like his first year. It was like, wow, this guy's going to be scary. And then second year, maybe sort of in that top 10, top 15 player, and now in the third year, I think he's sort of entered that upper echelon. And so, yes, we'll see what the Spurs can get from Dylan Harper as well in his rookie year. And I think some of these other young role players, Castle and Keldon Johnson, seems like Devin Vassell is having a really nice year, which is good to see. Um, yeah, I think they're ready to take the next step. And then, of course, the Lakers when they get LeBron back, the way Austin Reeves is playing, Luke obviously, in great shape and playing real well. And I think they've done a decent job filling out that roster with defensive role players and what have you. The Pistons, I would say, I'm like sort of the most bearish on. Uh, there's some good talent there, but they're young. I feel like offensively, maybe like not enough shooting. I mean, you got a lot of athletic wing guys, Holland and Thompson, and you got Durant inside. But I feel like they need a little more skill offensively, not just Kate Cunningham.
Yeah, it kind of seems like they're missing their shooters from last year that fit so well with Malik Beasley and Tim Hardaway Jr. no longer on the roster. They did bring in Duncan Robinson and all that, but it hasn't quite translated. They're 22nd in shooting efficiency. Detroit is, but their defense, as you mentioned, all those wings. That's where it shows up. They're third on defense.
Yeah.
You're throwing out Asar Thompson, Jalen Duren around Cade. You're in Holland, and you're getting some good defense there. I think I agree with you. The Spurs are the most legit there of the three. Like I think the Spurs are the most real. Like, is this team real? I'm going with the Spurs out of those three because you get Wemby, as you said, at this like MVP depoy level player already. You're unleashing all this depth, incredible defense and personnel. You mentioned the plenty of the roster that's impressive. They're good on both ends of the floor. They're sixth on defense, and that's led by Wemby. But they also, have the rookie Carter Bryant. They're developing on the wing, defensive ace type of guy. Jeremy Socon, nice playmaking forward type of guy. That is just kind of a fun player out there for them to have. They got Luke Cornett teaching Wemby how to do the Cornett contest, which
That was
is
good.
just the most dangerous Cornet contest to ever exist. No one's reached higher. But that's the Spurs. I do think that I buy them as legit contenders, and I'm starting to buy the Lakers as legit contenders. Though I didn't have them as that before the season, but the defense is what kind of is my hold up there. If I was gonna make a delineation like that, I would still have them in that pretender level only because of the defense. Like I'm not sure the team defense will get enough stops over a series, but they can score with anyone. It's like I buy the Lakers as legit playoff team. I think this version of the team is for real. Like I do think they are going to be an offensive type of almost juggernaut in a sense, especially if you get LeBron back with Luca and Reeves and their depth of scores with Rui Hachimura and Dalton Connect and now DeAndre Ayton filling a play finishing role, Jackson Hayes rim rolling as a lob threat to Luca. Like you're seeing a pick and roll identity develop for that team. And you got an MVP candidate, top five guy in Luka Doncic that's there to spearhead it. So you got a one man offense with depth of offense and play finishers. Like you're building something there, and they have a handful of personnel, as you said as well, that like defensively you can throw Marcus Smart out there and to guard at point of attack. They got some juice out of Jake LaRavia on both ends of the floor. He's been a nice prospect. They stole out of Memphis. So they definitely have some depth there. And I'm buying because they're in the East. I'm full buying Detroit as like top 5 seed home court advantage type of team that like is going to make the playoffs for sure, and I think has a chance to win a few series. But like you said, like the kind of like the lack of spacing and rigidness of the offense. Like you have this one man do it all creator in Cade, but like if he's getting doubled and your shooters can't hit shots, it's not going to go that far offensively. I don't think when it really matters most and you're up against the most, Cleveland, the most Knicks, the versatile two-way teams on the biggest stages. So I do think that because of parity and because of all these teams having all NBA level guys, like they're legit playoff teams with an outside chance to contend and make the finals because of all that. But ultimately, I think I'd land on the Spurs with you as the realist of the contenders. But any parting thoughts or any other teams here that we didn't get to?
No, I don't think so.
All right. Yeah. It was interesting to. It's always interesting to look at like the early small sample size, early season stats and stuff, and see what we think is kind of gonna stick and what's gonna, change back and forth. Because we all start out with our expectations. Then the actual basketball happens and plays out, and we all have to instantly adjust everything to what's actually happening compared to all of our expert predictions that we may have only got half right or whatever it may be. So, super interesting, man. I'm thankful you hopped on the pod today to talk a little draft model and share your thought process and on analytics and scouting and all that. You gotta check out the Big Waif on Twitter and follow him. Read his stuff at Swish Theory and check out the draft model. Be sure to link it when I post everything on Twitter below so people can find your work. Anything else you want to plug here, Jordan?
No, that's about it. Yeah, keep reading Swish Theory. Be on the lookout more draft model adjacent content and different stuff throughout the year, the college season, and everything. And yeah, that's about it, man. Thanks for having me. It was fun. It was a great talk, and do it again sometime.
Absolutely. And now we know, like, you got to keep an eye out when you're watching Iowa basketball. And if we see Alvaro, if we'll learn his name by the last name, or I will by the next time, by the draft time. But if we see him rise up to the first round on draft board, like that, I think that's a really good shout of like the statistical profile is there from a certain level. So the model likes him. Now it's just a matter of like how does he play out in a new role with a different opportunity against tougher competition. So that's the name I think that I wanted to highlight one last time from your model that got people should kind of keep an eye on Bennett Sturt's teammate this year over at Iowa. So appreciate you sharing everything, man. Be sure to check out the Big Waif on Twitter, and thanks for coming on.
All right, man. Thank you.
Have a good one.
Yeah.
Learning Basketball is a Swish Theory podcast hosted from Beyond the Arcade. Hey, that's me. You can find my work on Twitter, YouTube, Substack, and check out the team's writing at theswishtheory.com.